What up, fam? Hit that like, hit that subscribe. We'll talk what's left of Phillies Braves. NBA draft preview. Who cares? James Harden, Tobias Harris, back or not? All that coming up A2D Wednesday nights.
Oh my God!
I'm embarrassed!
He's flying!
Welcome in. It's almost time.
Welcome in, everybody. This is A2D Wednesday nights, only on A2D Radio. Every Wednesday, we are brought to you by Philly Sports Trips. But before we get into them, let me go over the panel as always. Frank Vespi, Greg Mlakovic, Ralph Delavecchio, Ryan Brotto, I'm Tom Ornone, everybody out there, and Chrome. Chrome, I don't even know if I hit you. I don't even care. At this point, you're in a you guys in a bunker, so it doesn't matter. He'll be irrelevant on tonight's show. We got a lot to go over and talk about. Phillies Braves, like I opened sort of with, are they even going to play it tomorrow? We're supposed to get a lot of rain here tomorrow, so we might be seeing all 27 games in September versus the Braves. NBA draft preview. We'll go over the main guys and where we think the main guys are going. The rest of the draft's irrelevant. And it's really irrelevant because we have no picks, and I don't want it to be relevant. I don't want to go back to top 5 lottery picks and be excited about those types of things. So sort of happy that's not too much on the docket tonight. The faded Tobias Harris, we'll get into that. James Harden re-signing with the Sixers. There's a lot of rumors circulating through the course of today that it looks like they're going to get a deal done. Not fond of that, but we'll get into all that. But let me talk to you a little bit about Philly Sport Trips. Birds fans, Phillies fans, doesn't matter who you're a fan of in Philly sports. Philly Sport Trips has released not only their Eagle schedule, Philly's schedule out. Right, they already got the Clearwater already ready for you, right in the chamber for next year. That you can already reserve a spot there as well. So make sure you go check out my friends at phillysportstrips.com and reserve your spot today. Not only will you get to watch Eagles games with the likes of Hollis Thomas, maybe even Irvin, but you got Akers, you got Dornbosch, you got Magic. What else do you want? They book at the best hotels and have the best players available. You'll have a blast. Book now and tell them the boys from A2D Radio sent you. But we got to talk about our poll question. Got to dive into our poll question, and that's brought to you by FanUp. FanUp is the best way to enjoy all fantasy sports. Win great prizes. Sign up today. Use our promo code A2D. You get $50 right at sign up. Our poll for tonight. James Harden and Tobias Harris will both be on the Sixers roster next season. Do you agree or disagree? Let us know. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. That's where we're live, and everywhere. I mean everywhere. You get your podcasts. We're there as well. Hit the like, subscribe, download. Most importantly, join our conversation tonight. Let us know how you're feeling. Obviously, we don't have a lot of Phillies to talk about because they didn't play tonight. I do. Actually, before I even get into this poll question, there's a guy who takes baths on 94.1 in the morning that needs to buy a million clues when it comes to baseball. And I'm going to say this right now. I don't even give a shit about the Sixers because this is relevant conversation. Okay, stop telling me how much better the Braves are than the Phillies, because all 100 wins did last year is get your ass knocked out of the playoffs. Okay, and you can't go off of this year. They're literally 3-2 versus the Phillies. Let's not act like they bent us over. If you want to talk about the Mets being better when we play them, be my guest, Joe. Be my guest. But please act like you know baseball. Like, if you're going to talk baseball on the airways, you find out if you're casual real quick. As soon as you speak, people say, this isn't the sport for you. Like, this, not a stick to, but you can be really good at just talking. Talking football. You can be really good at just talking other sports. That's okay. Nobody's going to take shots at you. Baseball ain't built for everybody. So when you start talking about the Braves are so much better than the Phillies, just stop, dude. Just stop. Like, why do we got to have hot takes all the time? You want to talk to me after the year and they beat us, and you want to talk about their trajectory is way more sustainable than ours? Fine. But we just beat them in the postseason. They're 3-2 versus this year. I don't care they're 20 games over 500. I don't care. They're awesome. We know they're awesome, but let's not act like they're light years better than us. Let's please not act like that. Okay, you want to talk to me 5 years from now? They're probably still better than us. Right now, no. There's my little rant. Get it out. Joe, please stick to some other things. Football, etc. You're a good dude. I'm not ripping you as a human being. I'm telling you that take is horrific. Horrific. There's good takes and there's horrific ones. And anybody that has a feel for baseball will fully support Tom Arnone's statement right now. I feel like I was running for office. So James Harden and Tobias Harris will always be on the Sixers roster next season. Do you agree or disagree? And here comes more negative thoughts. I actually agree. I don't. We can throw the trade machine up and pull a million things out. They got to want to pull the trigger on something, and it's got to be worth it for one Tobias Harris. Like, it has to be worth it. It can't just be like, I'm just getting rid of him to get rid of him. Why would I do that? Like, anybody thinks that's smart? Buy a clue because he's on the last year of his deal. That's freed up money next year. Forget about the player. Just think about the money free. Okay? So anybody that's just like, I just need to see something different. If you want to see something different, it's got to be with no James Harden. That's something different. Okay? But one guy cuddles with my president of basketball operations. All right? Sort of an issue. Okay? Sort of an issue that they're going to do something. They're going to do something. And guess what? What Doc Rivers said, it's the facts. He's a perennial loser. Doc didn't say that, but he said it, right? You can tell when somebody said something without saying it. He was a perennial loser. He'll always be a loser. That's what he is, right? He's going to change his stripes overnight. So I'm done on James Harden, but he's going to be back here because they like him. The president of basketball operations loves him. I don't know if Nick Nurse loves him. I don't know about the other things, but I'm really hoping he's not back. I'm praying he's not back. But I just got this vibe that they're gonna try to not run it back, but they're not gonna have the trade partners for Tobias that really intrigue them, and they're not gonna let Harden just walk out the door in their eyes because it doesn't necessarily free up the money you would want it to free up, right? So you're better off trying to say, all right, let me try to make something of this. Let me see if chemistry matters, right? So, that's where I stand. And I know I didn't say much Sixer stuff because I was too busy with the camera, but that's fine. So I agree. Sadly, I think they're both back.
Tom, I agree with you. I think that whether they delusionally think that they were good enough this year, whichever way they fall on it, I think like all signs, like James Harden's here right now. It's just about like, are they going to pay him to like a 1-year contract? Is he going to opt in? Is it going to be like this team friendly 2-year deal thing that's been like thrown out there? He's going to be back. He's going to be the point guard. And to your point, like we talked about this like 4 weeks ago, like Tobias Harris's trade market, like we have no idea if it even exists, right? Because for us meaning the Sixers wanting to like get rid of him, you're probably, if you're Daryl Morey, going to want like a first-round pick, right? And then it's like, okay, I feel like picks are just being thrown around for anything nowadays, except for Bradley Beal, coincidentally enough. The Tobias Harris thing, it's kind of like a team that thinks they're good enough needs to also think they're like a Tobias Harris away, but also he's on an expiring contract. It's just like he's a good player that would match like a couple teams, but you're not going to get like a ton for him. And then Daryl was also, I'm sure, thinking to himself, well, we're not just going to dump him because there's no clear pivot to be like, oh, we're going to go from Tobias Harris to X name player because the free agency class pretty much sucks. And any like notable free agent, like you see Kyle Kuzma wants like 30, 35 million a year. It's like, you're going to go, there's just no clear answer. So I'm sure in their mind, they're like, okay, if we can get like a young player, maybe 2 players in like a future pick, that way we have the capability of trading a first round pick before 2029, which we don't right now. Sure. If not, let's just lean on the possibility of James Harden not being a playoff loser, Joel Embiid staying healthy, Tyrese Maxey getting a little bit better, and the bench somehow being better because it seems like they want to bring back the same bench guys. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't understand. History would tell you that's not going to work out. We're going to be right back where we were the last like 3, 4, 5 years. But I hate it because, like, as a Sixers fan, like, there's been a lot of things that we've gone through. Stuck hasn't been one of them. Like, the feeling of being stuck as an organization. Right now, you're kind of stuck into being, okay, Well, the president of basketball operations loves James Harden. He's going to bring him back. Tobias Harris, unless you're just going to dump him for nothing, he's probably going to be back too. So I think it's going to be relatively the same team, and you're just going to hope that history kind of changes a little bit. So I completely agree. I think this is going to be the same team that we saw last year, for the most part, that is.
I'm going to disagree to the poll, and I think Harden is going to be here. I think that Tobias Harris might be on his way out. I'm going to be optimistic here, guys. And for a team that maybe it's not always the best to be optimistic about, I'm going to be very optimistic here. I think a lot's going to be telling when you see what happens with what Portland does at 3, because if Portland makes that pick and takes Scoot Henderson, Damian Lillard's going to want out of there. And then it comes down to where are the best fits and who has the pieces to get them, right? And a lot of people would say, well, Miami has the draft picks, because we know we don't have a draft pick to trade, I think, until 2029. But if Portland's looking to rebuild, but rebuild at a faster pace, they have Scoot Henderson. You trade Tobias Harris and Maxey. Maxey's that other piece there, and it also will free up a max spot for them next year. So then, to me, if I'm Portland, yeah, I could go in and get all these 3 or 4, or 2 or 3 draft picks or whatever it is, but your rebuild's going to take a longer process. And I think Portland's going to look to turn it around a little bit faster than that. And in the NBA, you really can if you have some of the assets already in place. And Maxey around the league is looked at very highly as a very valuable trade piece. So maybe I'm being optimistic, but my gut tells me there's a real shot that if they take Scoot Henderson at 3, Damian Lillard's for the taking. And if the Sixers make an offer that includes Maxey, Tobias, that opens up $40 million for them next year. And I've heard somebody say, well, they could throw Kyle Lowry in. Well, $30 million compared to $40 million in a full max spot next year, on top of having 2 of your core players going forward in your rebuild. To me, I think that's very, very enticing, more so than the draft picks for Portland. And it would not shock me at all to see Damian Lillard on this team. I think that Tobias Harris, one way or the other, is gone. And I'm cautiously optimistic. I want Portland to make that pick so that Dame Lillard does hit the market. And I know we talk about, and it's obvious that Harden is in bed with the president of basketball operations and everything else. That being said, your superstar here is Joel Embiid. And at the end of the day, your priority is Joel Embiid. And do I think that Joel Embiid's going to want to run to the New York Knicks next year, like a lot of people have been kind of throwing out there? No, not necessarily. But do I think that your window is closing and Embiid might look at it that way and say, I have to do my part, but they're not doing their part to build this team around me either? And I could go somewhere else that has the assets in place and be that guy? Yeah, I could see that in a year or 2. So priority has to be Joel Embiid. If Damian Lillard's out there, you got a chance to go get Damian Lillard, and Joel Embiid says, go out there and make your best effort to get it done, you have to get it done. And if not, then more needs to go. Doesn't matter with the Harden stuff, everything else. If he's not willing to go out there and put that effort out there. And I know we love Tyrese Maxey here, guys, but I say it all the time to me. Your best window to win a championship is the next 3 years, not 10 years with Tyrese Maxey on this team. It's the 3 years or 4 years that we have left of Embiid's prime. So 100%, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to be optimistic that Tobias and Maxey are going to go for a big asset that I think could be Damian Lillard. If not, then hopefully maybe it's Harden who's out the door, and I would love to see a Fred VanVleet here, who I think would be absolutely perfect, even with a small backcourt, to put with Maxey and Embiid, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Your leader still seems to not be a leader, so I don't know. I don't know if anything really matters anymore. Through 14 minutes now. Yeah. I mean, good luck trying to change the stripes. That's where I stand with the Sixers. Like
I get it. I get
love Joel, and it's cool, and we'll run another coach through. But until he wants it, and I'm not saying he does it. I don't know. I mean, I don't speak for players, right? But until like he really wants it or gets lucky in a way of like maybe not getting hurt, right? Like things like that. So until that happens,
I do believe in the coach, though. I believe, and listen, I know it's been like levels of accountability, right? But at the end of the day, I believe that Nick Nurse, and he's proven it, and we've talked about it before, will get in Joel's face. He has no problem.
But can he keep the other guy out of the strip club? Can you keep the other guy flying from out of town? You know what I mean? Like you guys follow leaders, and that's the sad part. I mean, it's not sad. I mean,
Yeah.
if your leader's great, it's awesome. But in reality, it can be detrimental. I mean, look at Memphis. I mean, Memphis is a bunch of fake tough guys. It's literally a bunch of circle jerker fake tough guys. Like, you guys ain't tough. Now get off. You know what I mean? Who are you? You ain't the bad boys. But their leader is a fake tough guy. The guy got all the money. He's fake tough guy. So you see that throughout the NBA, right? You know, which is interesting in a way too, because it's small. It's a smaller circle of players, right? So it's easier to have guys sort of watch everything you do because there's less guys. There's less guys to watch. Football, you got a million guys. So yeah, you're gonna watch a quarterback. You're gonna watch the main positions, but basketball is a small knit group.
Tom, I think the best way to sum up what you said, which I agree with, is nothing. It's just nothing sacred anymore. Nothing. It's like, at least in past years, we thought we had at least one thing to hang our hat on, which is, we have Joel, right? We have Joel, and obviously, like, we could still say that we have the league MVP, so that matters, right? It's not. I mean, there's a million players that or teams that would be like, oh, I wish I had Joel Embiid, right? So I'm not saying that we're the freaking Detroit Pistons, for God's sakes, but even there, unlike past years, we're kind of like, okay, but what does that mean, right? Like he in turn, 5 minutes after getting eliminated by Miami, begged for PJ Tucker because he said PJ Tucker was exactly what he needed, and this team needed to lock everybody in. Which even back then, I look back and I say, why did we need someone from the outside to teach us and him to be an adult, especially in the playoffs, not only just Game 7, right? Like if you could just look back, there's a lot of red flags that we kind of looked at like, oh, that makes sense. And I'm not saying like the PJ Tucker thing made 0 sense on the surface, right? Because we all kind of convinced ourselves that that's kind of what we needed.
No, I still think we do. I have no problem. I think PJ helped.
Yeah.
It just didn't get the end result we wanted of it helping, but I definitely think he helped for sure. But yeah, I mean, listen, there's until the big dog leads by example, I guess is the right words. We're just here.
No, you're absolutely right, Tommy. And to that, like, I want to disagree, right? Like, I want to disagree and hope it's Harden, you know what I mean? But I think I ultimately, though, I'm going to agree because of everything that you guys have said, even you, Chrome, right? You know what I mean? Even you trying to be optimistic kind of proved the point of why it's probably going to be an agree.
Yeah.
Because I also think Tobias Harris's best window to get traded is probably closer to the deadline where a team doesn't have to put up so much of the money, even though with the expiring contract, right?
And the only reason that's done, hold on real quick, the only way that would be done, Greg, is if you're not good.
If you're not good, or you just exactly.
You're not going to do that.
You're not good.
Yeah, you're
right. You're not going to do that if your
Yeah.
team's playing well.
You're top 13 in the East. Still one of our players for nothing. Like, you know what I mean? It's just a cap dump type of situation. Nah.
Yeah. So, and that's where I think his biggest value is going to be, right? So, like I said, the team doesn't have to pay the full year. They can get the expiring contract. They can get the max player placeholding by just picking them up at the deadline. Celtics.
Yeah, Rose just reported that 3-team trade that happened today is not going to get done.
I wish they did get him because he's a loser too.
Yeah, that didn't make sense. I kind of was hoping it happened.
Tom, you know what? And I said this to Ralphie. If he went there, of course he would stay healthy. Porzingis, right? Like he would find the career. He'd be wrapped in bubble wrap. I
actually had a lesson where he's a Boston fan and his dad's a Boston fan. And they weren't like thrilled. You know, like why Brogdon? Why Brogdon?
I was going to say,
I don't know.
Player to deal.
Yeah, like I don't know why you want to get rid of Brogdon. I like Brogdon, but no, go ahead, Greg. Go ahead. I mean,
I'm just going to agree. It's just because it's what the Sixers are right now, right? They're just, like you said, Tom, they're just going to recycle head coaches through here and hope that one of them can get the best out of this group. And I don't know if that's possible, as you just mentioned about Joel being the true leader, and also when you bring in a guy like James, who, you know what I mean, doesn't show up in big moments. We'll have great games. We'll have, we'll make you think that he's there and he's, a contributing part of the team. And then the biggest moments of the game or the biggest games of the year just kind of finds a way to not be there. So I wanted to disagree, but I can't see a way that they're both not here to start the year.
Yep. Frank?
I mean, I too wanted to disagree, but I'm going to flip over to agree. I mean, originally, I was going to disagree and say that Toby was going to be the one to go, but I mean, with the draft and the draft coming up, seeing what, we know Wemby's going to go to San Antonio. Charlotte, we don't know if they're going to go with Brandon Miller or Scoot Henderson at 2. At 3, I mean, if it's going to be the remainder of those two, it's a lot of question marks going into tomorrow, and of course with this free agency period. I mean, I don't think we have much cash to work with in this free agency period. I mean, re-sign Paul Reed, I guess. Have some backup center. Trez is probably going to not come back. I don't know what's going to happen, but I just don't know how this offseason is going to go. I honestly don't know. I don't know what Daryl has up his sleeves. If he has something crazy, then Daryl I somewhat trust. So that's where I'm at with this.
I've never been reached around. I've never been reached around so many times than I am every week when Frank gives his answer on the agreed.
Frank, you just did everything but answer the poll.
No, he just went through the whole criteria of the show, essentially, got it out, but said nothing.
Frank, did you even say James Harden's name once in that?
No.
There was no reference to James Harden.
No, there was nothing. There wasn't a Tobias Harris or James Harden.
It was more about Tobias.
But no, then you started talking about
Tobias. You went Wembanyama. We started talking Wembanyama. You went Wembanyama. We're talking about Tobias Harden. You actually circled.
We got the Paul Reed in there too. Yeah. We got a Paul Reed drop.
Paul Reed drop. We got a Wembanyama. We got Henderson.
We got a Montrezl
Brandon Miller. We got Montrezl.
I just don't know where this team's going, to be honest with you.
I love you, Frank.
I know. We can tell.
I don't know.
We can tell you don't know. Yeah, we know that you
Frank,
don't know.
To be honest, I don't either. I don't think Daryl does. All right, Frank. So we'll agree with you there.
I don't know.
I hope Daryl has a way better feel than Frank does right now. I'll tell you that much. We're in a lot of trouble.
I would hope.
Love you, Frank.
And again, it's hopeful. I would hope that if Damian Lillard is available and there's a realistic opportunity there, that if Daryl Morey is this guru and genius roster builder that he's said to be, he could get this incredibly undying need to try to win a championship with one singular player's entire career.
It was a lie.
To the side and see that, like, there's an opportunity here to go next level with one of the greatest players of the generation that's been stuck in Portland.
Chrome,
and they have the assets to do it.
Chrome, I say
and it makes sense for the other team that has that asset.
What assets do the Sixers have?
We have nothing. We have nothing for them.
What assets? You don't even have. You don't have a first-round draft pick to trade until 29.
You don't have to.
You don't need first round. I'm not trying to come on.
They have Tyrese. They got Tyrese Maxey, and they're opening up a full max spot.
Would you stop with the Tyrese Maxey for a second, Chrome? Because I think you're just going too far. You don't need to go that far. What you have is an expiring max deal in your holster, which is bigger than anything else for teams. That's what you have. I'm not saying it gets done. I'm saying if Portland's ready to rebuild it, you have the freed up money sitting right there. You don't even need Tyrese Maxey. To be honest with you, you don't even need it if they're willing to go in that full, because they have young guards. It's not like they're in need of a young guard.
They got many.
So they don't need a Tyrese Maxey per se. They need to get rid of the money. And Tobias Harris is the perfect guy to handle that type of situation for them. So in terms of that, there actually is a conversation to be had. But the Maxey for the Sixers is like, why would I give you Maxey? I'm giving you an expiring deal. That's what I'm giving you. So they hold some cards in this conversation too, if you want to talk about what kind of money you have to give up and when it's coming off the other team's books. It's very important in this.
Chrome, I say this because I love you. Save yourself. I don't think, because we've been doing the Dame thing for like 3 years now, right? It happens
I think
every
team has. I think every team in the NBA.
Yeah. If there's something with Portland, again, like just my opinion, he's going to force them to trade the third for like a Paul George or something, right? Or a Brandon Ingram or a Karl Anthony Towns. That's what he wants. I think that's like the whole handshake agreement with the new organizational power heads from a couple years ago when they flipped everything.
That's fine, but they still haven't gave him that. They gave him Jeremy Grant. So, I mean, that's great. That's great. But hold on. Relationships end at times.
Sure.
They come to an end. So to
100%.
say that like he's going to be there forever, he can say what he wants. I've heard a lot of players say, I want to be here forever. And that's cool. And it's a cool story until somebody's actually somewhere forever. And if he does stay there forever, credit to him for doing it. But to think that a relationship can't be split at some point because they don't get you what you want, and if that comes to fruition, if Dame at any point says, I want out, they don't even want to, they don't want to take on any money. They want to, how can I free it as quick as possible? And that's where we hold those cards for them.
The worst kept secret in the NBA is the fact that Portland wants to go younger and Dame does not want them to go younger. Yeah. It's been the worst kept secret in the NBA for the last 3 years.
They're doing it right in front of them.
And this is now the point, though. And Dame's already now. This is the first time you've seen Dame go out and talk about Miami and kind of acknowledge that this is not an impossibility. So now you're at this point where Portland has this high value pick at number 3 with three very super talented guys at the top of the draft. That if there ever is a time that you're going to move him and go young and start by taking this pick at number 3, this is it. The problem is Dame doesn't want to be the bad guy and say, trade me. Even though everybody and their mother has said, you're not the bad guy. At this point, you've done your due diligence in Portland. You have stuck it out as long as you possibly can. You have earned the right to go elsewhere. But he doesn't want to be that guy. And Portland doesn't want to be the ones to say, we traded the generational type of talent.
They're stuck between like being ahead of things and going younger and sticking with the nostalgia.
It's a game of chicken. It's who's going to be the one to pull the trigger first.
Can I ask a question? Can you even get? I know the money has to work, right? But okay, Dame, Tobias, and whatever little extra money needs to make that work. Fine. Are you then able? Like I don't get into this when it comes to basketball money wise because it's just always ebb and flow and changing. It's weird. Other sports are very easy with this. Yes. They're not for some reason. Like they got to make it the most complicated. Like we're not here to do calculus, babe.
This salary matching is the craziest thing.
Well, it's going to get worse with the CJ McCollum cap flexibility after next year. It's going to get worse. Just so you know.
It's between this and the dead cap in football. They're all mess.
Yeah,
I think I totally lost my train of thought now on where I was going.
You were asking, is something possible with the money?
Okay, so can they a smaller deal with Harden per se?
Yes,
and still have Maxey off your bench. Are you able to pull that off? Because if you can somehow, you'd have other things you'd have to give up, like in Tobias, like just other. I don't know what the money match is. I mean, Tobias is a max deal. I know Dame's a super max, I think. So I don't know the difference in that money.
I mean, the thing is, the word with Portland is if they're ever to consider a deal like that, Max is going to have to be included.
Not anymore. That's what I'm trying to say to you. You are dumping money for them, which is a bigger asset than any goddamn young player. And if you got to give up Maxey, fine, whatever. But I'm trying to do it without that.
I'm saying they could dump the money elsewhere and do the same thing. They could get $30 million. They could go to Miami and get $30 million at least. It's not a full max, but $30 million is a lot of cap.
To be honest with you,
they could get all the draft cap. They could trade the bias for first for somebody else. You could work that around.
If you really want to do that, you could actually just do it's a 1-for-1. You could literally swap Tobias for Dame 1-for-1.
Plus,
because of the money.
Portland also has more cap flexibility. They're like, I think $18 million in the good area of the cap.
Dame's got 4 years left on his deal, so you don't have to sign him. You get him here, and he's
Martian. I don't know if we see that happening, but that has been discussed that he could.
That's what we're trying to get to happen. You want to win? Like you really want to have your best opportunity to cut.
That's a big 3.
And first off, I don't even know how big that 3 is, to be honest with you, because I got a couple. I got To be honest, actually, I'll go a step further. I may have 3 question marks in that group, okay? But they're super talented. Like, I got question marks all over the board here. But I'm in.
If the NBA could somehow revert to the year after the bubble season when it was a shortened NBA season where it started in like December, where it was like 60-game season, if we could somehow do that this year with those 3, Joel, Harden, and Dame, okay, we might win something.
No, and Phoenix will win it. So just see yourself out.
Yeah.
Phoenix will win it. They got all the 40 gamers.
They're not winning.
By the way, we're going to have
They're not
to have a
winning
conversation about Kevin Durant really, really soon.
Yeah, they're not.
This
But
is
no, I
disgusting.
mean, that's what I'm trying to get to happen. If you're going that route.
To both of your points, I think what they're going to do is they're going to be forced, whoever's forcing themselves, Dame's forcing them into trading for, let's say, Paul George tomorrow night. They're going to pass up on Scoot Henderson if Scoot's there. If not, it's going to be Brandon Miller. And they're going to think that the Paul George, Damian Lillard tandem is going to lead them somewhere, which on paper it's very good, but also none of them can stay healthy. None of them. So, like, that's going to be their pivot move, and they're going to be like the Clippers, but like without Kawhi Leonard type thing.
I don't know that I see Paul George getting moved because of the fact that Chris Paul is looking to go there. I think the whole contingency is having the fact that you would have Kawhi and Paul George in LA.
Portland's not going to pull this off.
Gonna.
I'm just going to make this clear to people. Portland ain't going to pull this off. First off, somebody's got to want to go there because a lot of these guys got no trades places. So you got to convince the guy to go let it rain on you, right? Let it rain.
There's
and not
no
a way
way
you
they're trading number 3
not
no more.
Tobias.
Yeah,
There's
not
no
the
way they're
bias,
trading
though.
3.
Like, that's why they can't get the player right that you're talking about is because nobody wants to go there. And it's not like Dame is 28. So
Yeah.
why if I'm Paul George, dude,
Why am I leaving LA?
I'm in LA and
I
I'm
got
good.
palm trees and I
I
got to
got-
go to the rain every day.
All right,
I got
all
some
right.
players. Like my team's full of good players. Not saying great players, but the Clippers are full of good players,
Good
right?
players,
And
yeah.
a really good coach.
Very deep team.
So like,
I'll pivot.
Well, and then you go out and you
Brandon.
add a CP3 on that, right? Is he going to go to Portland where it's just him, Dame, and Jeremy Grant and man?
Grant might not even
That's
be
it.
there. Grant's free agent.
That I'm saying, like, well, the
Dame, and a
consensus
bunch
is
of
Grant
picks.
is open to
Dame and a bunch of
re-signing
picks.
it. I mean, yeah, I mean, where does that benefit Paul George to go to Portland at that point? I mean, it doesn't make his situation any better to win a title. If anything, it's a regression or a parallel move. There's no progression forward. So it makes no sense for him to go to Portland whatsoever.
they're just
or to
in a
waive
tough
no trade.
spot. They're in a tough spot. There's a reason they haven't been able to land somebody to pair with them like they really wanted to. And the only guy they did have paired with them, they traded. So, in CJ. So, they did have a pairing of 2 guards, right? That they said that's not working. And they went in a different direction there. So, I don't know what's left for them. There's obviously always going to be names every year that are linked to it. It's just the way it goes, right? What's real, what's not, nobody knows, right? But at the end of the day, we can only go off of the trend of it, and they haven't been able to find anybody with the pair with them.
No, they think that they reinvent the wheel every year, and they end up for the first half of the year like 6th in the West. Then Dame gets hurt, and then they just shut
They
everybody
finished
down.
13th this year.
Yeah, it's every year.
Because if I'm them, I'm like not trust the process mode, but I'm like I got some good young players already. I got what I think is
2 young guards there already.
I got a former point guard that's a winner of as a player as my coach, right? So I got the number 3 pick in a draft. Okay. And if I moved on from Dame, I'm probably going to be up in there again next year. And I got a real opportunity now to build from within because the only way Portland can win is if it's homegrown players. Again, nobody wants to go to Portland.
They could be sitting here tomorrow night with like a Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller, even though it seems like Brandon Miller's going to before they would even have the opportunity to go and pick. They could end up with like Scoot Henderson, whatever draft capital they have, if they were to trade Dame. And if not, if they keep Dame, it could be Scoot. They could have Shaden Sharp and Anthony Simons. It's like they're 3 like young core type pieces.
Yeah. Before I get fined, we got to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in 42 seconds. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, Birds fans, the NFL schedule has arrived and Philly Sports Trips has all the details now. Visit the site phillysportstrips.com. This is sure to be an epic season. Be sure to go there now to make sure that you don't get shut out. Join us in Tampa, LA, Seattle, or when we get revenge in Kansas City. Don't want to fly? No problem. Gather up your crew and hop aboard one of our signature boisterous bus trips to DC or New York. Sign up now and make sure to mention A2D. Don't miss out on the best Philly fan experience anywhere. Philly Sports Trip customers always stay at the best hotels and meet NFL legends. Book today.
A2D Wednesday nights brought to you by Philly Sports Trips. Go book your getaway today, phillysportstrips.com.
So this report comes out like an hour before we go on the air. So like kudos to the report. They timed it perfectly. But like the three teams that have made inquiries about Tobias, it's the Pistons, the Cavs, the Pacers. 2 out of 3 bad teams. Report also says, however, another source said the Sixers will only make a deal that would be hard to pass up. As a result, teams around the league believe the Sixers are overvaluing Harris and asking for, quote, outrageous packages in return.
Cool. Yeah, I read that. And I think it's the last part's the dumbest thing in the world because, like, you're going to look for the offer that fits you. You're going to try to get the best return back. And like, I think what happens out there too is like guys like that, right? They like he's a good, when you got a good player that's on the last year of his deal, that's intriguing, not only to bad teams like Indiana, etc., right? But it's also enticing to really good ones and contenders. Like there's some contenders out there that might need a small forward, right? So it's enticing. It is enticing that for the fact that there's not a big value, and what I mean by big is enough back for Tobias Harris. To act like that is last year. We talked about this last year, same time, same place. Here we are again. Okay, the difference from this year is like we talked about last year was that next year's the year. Next year's the year where his value is the highest. And credit to Tobias, he had a very good year.
Very good year.
Very good year. Is your fourth option on a team. As a fourth option on a basketball team.
Very good years.
Okay. Very good defensively and probably had the best out of everybody in game 7 versus Celtics. That's not saying a lot, but had the best game. So in reality, his value
overall he played very consistently throughout the playoffs from first and second series. So
most consistent player.
He might have been the most consistent player throughout.
For a goddamn fourth option. For a goddamn fourth option. That's a joke. It's
Tom,
a joke.
As crazy as this may be.
Might keep him and trade everybody else.
Well, the crazy thing is, and this is where like some teams
now we're getting crazy.
You got to hope, maybe not Maxey. The other ones, who knows? Is that you can look at the Sixers as being one of the worst situations for Tobias, and I'm not like I don't think that's hot takey of me to say because he's the fourth option, right? Like if you put him on a team, whether it's a good team, a bad team, whatever. And you give him the opportunity to take the shots that he didn't, in Los Angeles, which warranted the Sixers wanting to trade for him, you're going to see much more production. There's no defined role for him, right? Like we go through some games, in a 2-week sample size during the regular season, and we're looking at them. We can't even get Tyrese Maxey a defined role, and he's the third option, right? So you kind of have to look at, okay, what he brings you. He obviously brings you things, and it's going to sound like I'm really like selling him to any NBA team watching the show right now. But like, we know what he brings on both sides of the ball.
They should all be watching.
Yeah, well, yes, obviously. But the biggest thing with him, I think we would all agree, is that he doesn't do enough, and it's almost like he's passive. We want him to score more, but he just doesn't turn into that guy.
Because he's not expected to.
He's the fourth option. What fourth option? It's
everything goes through Joel Embiid. Tobias is better as a downhill player. And when you're better as a downhill player, you almost need the space in the paint to operate, right? And he's always been like that. I'm not trying to build around Tobias. I know Don's joking. What I'm trying to do is have Tobias Maxey here with Joel. I'd rather have that than Harden. Like to me, even though I agreed to the poll, I'd rather Harden just walk out the door because I would rather see how that goes. Because I'll bet you something. I will bet everybody money here that offense is better. It's better. How much better, etc. We'll find out. But Tobias is your third option is a really good option to have.
Let me say a couple of quick things here. First
Even
of all,
with Joel, because Joel does extend. He extends his game. So he's not like eventually your prototypical old big center. So, but I think those three when you've seen them play together without Harden, okay? And if you can find tape of this throughout the year, I bet you I'm on to something. The offense ran better, right? It just looked better. It wasn't stagnant as much.
Yeah, ball movement.
And it just, even without the ball movement, there was more guys on attack, right?
Well,
so forget I need to make that. Like I need to make 8 passes. I don't need to make 8 passes. I'm just going to attack you.
Well, you know why?
And that's what that offense does.
Because they're not just standing there watching somebody dribble for 4
exactly. Because one guy's a scumbag.
Well, let me take that a
if
step
that's
further.
too much, I'm sorry.
I'm going to take that a step further. But first things first, going back to where you were talking about the 3 teams, right? And the statement that the Sixers were overvaluing Tobias. First of all, to Tom's point earlier, when you have the expiring deal, particularly with a productive player, all right, we're not talking about back in the day when Jamal Mashburn wasn't playing for 4 years and his contract kept getting traded all over the place. You're talking about a productive player who still can contribute to a team. You have the ability to value that at a higher value than just any other regular expiring contract. So, yes, if the Sixers say the only way I'm trading him is if I'm getting a Dame Lillard type of a player back, or maybe there's some kind of sign-in trade somewhere else with another player, I'm just throwing his name out there. I'm not saying this is like a Jaylen Brown or one of these guys to where you can maximize that deal coming off. And basically you're taking the money that's coming off the books next year and you're just allocating it this year for a guy who's going to be on your books this year. That's one thing. But to say the Sixers are overvaluing because maybe they don't want to trade him for Buddy Hield and junk and take that opportunity for that money to open up next year. That's their right to do that. I mean, I like Buddy Hield, but I don't know that I would trade Tobias Harris in a deal that include him at this point either. And it's the other point that you made here, Tom, and Ryan too as well. When we talk about, I don't think I think if James Harden walks, I don't think we're even just looking at Tobias, Maxey, and Embiid. To me, and I'm all for this, the guy I'm bringing in, hands down, Fred VanVleet. I think that dude, I don't care that it's a small backcourt. That dude is a 20-point machine who contributes, who could shoot the basketball and plays like a true point guard and has succeeded and won a title under Nick Nurse. So he knows exactly how he can facilitate the basketball on a championship team. I think that's where that money ends up going, and I'm all for it. All for it.
I'm not against that.
No, I'm not against it either. The thing I wish they would do, what we just described here, first off, it could be summarize the entire show with this team, but really the last 5 minutes, it's malpractice. When you look at how the Sixers, not only over the last 12 months, 24 months have handled this. Because they got backed into a corner and they bring in, I'm not going to say they bring in James Harden because that whole other situation was one of one. But you bring him back on that contract, you commit to that, and now you're in a situation where, similar to the Tobias Harris contract, when you sign him to that infamous contract, instead of Jimmy Butler.
That's been the backbreaker. Let's be real, though. That's been the handcuff all these
years.
years.
Of course, because he's a very good role player who you paid max money. And it's the similar situation with James Harden, where if you let Tobias walk back then, if you let James Harden walk now, you don't just automatically end up with $30 million in cap space. It just doesn't. That doesn't happen because the whole bird rights thing in the NBA being weird with their money. So you're kind of forced into doing the Tobias Harris thing, especially after losing Jimmy. And now you're kind of forced into doing some sort of a deal with James Harden. If you weren't in that situation, I think the best thing for us that doesn't involve, a Damian Lillard or like a star type player is simply bringing in a point guard who is a facilitating point guard. Okay, there's a million of them, right? Somebody who's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. Somebody who could just run a team and pass the ball to people that deserve the basketball. Then you run the offense through Tyrese Maxey, since the coach, the president of basketball operations, his teammates have said that he has the potential to be one of the best basketball players in the league, right? That's their words, not mine.
That's a ridiculous statement.
Which it's a very ridiculous statement, but that's what even makes it funnier that they say that, and now they're going to probably bring James Harden back for 2 years with a third-year option, and they're going to let James Harden be the.
If they watched what everybody watches, they should understand that you can look at the regular season and you can look at certain things and that can sell you on a player, or you can watch what they did in the final moments of Game 6, in the last 5 minutes, and what took place in Game 7. And if you wanna hang your goddamn hat on what took place in the regular season and what took place in Game 1, that's cute, that's cool, right? I mean, that happens with him sometimes. But I'm gonna look at what happens in the final minutes of Game 6 at home. Okay, when you're supposed to be the leader, you're the point guard. So you create the offense. You start it. It starts with you. Even though we say the offense runs through Joel, the offense runs through who brings the damn ball up.
Yep.
Right? He starts the party. Okay, that's basketball 101 for anybody watching out there. The other side of it is, right, we saw that, and then we saw Game 7. It was a disappearing act. He looked horrendous in Game 7. Horrendous. No legs. So what are we going to do here? We're going to load manage and have him play 40 games to get to the point we want to get to? It just doesn't make sense. He's a 33-year-old guy who looks like he's 40, right? It looks like he's 40. I mean, if you go watch him 3 years ago, they look like two completely different players. There's no lift, all right? And when there's no lift, you can't finish around the rim. And when there's no lift, you're not going to make your threes like you once did. That's the end of the conversation. That's simple as that. I'm talking about him.
I just wish that they would have been proactive and they would have said, hey, let's see how good Tyrese Maxey can be. And let's put a facilitating point guard with him, because I would imagine that's like their concern with him running points, that he has not shown the ability to really get guys involved while also being aggressive. It kind of cancels it out, right? Which is understandable. The guy was a shooting guard, right? So it's like he can't really learn on the job and compete, right? Especially being thrown into the fire last season. But that also doesn't mean you should commit your entire organization to, like, Chrome, you would know this better than I do. You're a Disney guy, but like the character from the Mighty Ducks, the kid who hits the puck really hard. Like the
Fulton Reed.
Fulton Reed, yeah.
What is his catchphrase? 1 out of 5. Yeah, that's the amount of games where James Harden is even close to being James Harden. One out of 5.
Yeah, and you're lucky with that, right?
That all sounds like the amount of draft picks the Sixers hit. 1 out of 5.
And every year that you commit to him,
very true.
Yeah, that's very true.
Dynamite dropping, Frank.
Yes, there you go, Frank. And every year you continuously commit to James Harden, it goes from 1 out of 5 to 1 out of 7, 1 out of 9. You know why? Because he's not getting any younger, or his legs, or his freaking Achilles that he's always complaining about every 5-6 games. Like, you already have injury concerns. Now you're pairing it with just older injury concerns. And I understand what they were and all the advanced statistics with the pick and roll and all that stuff. Yeah, you know what went away as soon as they defended for it because James Harden had no legs in the playoffs? Oh, yeah, the infamous pick and roll. You didn't see it because the guy didn't have any legs. So it's tough. I would love to be in a situation by October where we're talking ourselves back into this being the year and we're going to be the 1 seed and we're finally going to get past the second round. But you're kind of forced into just running it back for the most part, maybe 1 or 2 other bench pieces that are a little different, and hoping just something changes with players that seems like they are.
It's as simple as this. If he's like any other 33-year-old that actually took care of his body the proper way, all right, and didn't put on a bunch of weight, he would still be a high-level player in this league consistently. He would be. That's his facts. The facts is he didn't take care of his body. I mean, LeBron's goddamn 39. I mean, they look like they should swap ages. Like, that's because you didn't take care of your body. You didn't invest into your body. If you want to be a professional athlete and play deep into your career, right, deeper than most guys do at a high level, then it all starts when in the ages of 25 and up, you better start taking care of your body better. You better invest into it the proper way, the right nutritionist, etc. That guy looks overweight. The stat, like I said, go back and look at him 2 years ago. I mean, 3 years ago. He looked like a completely different player. Who's that guy? Who's that big man? A little hefty.
He's always been a little thick, but he's added a couple C's at the end of over the last couple seasons.
Oh yeah, she thick.
Well, Tom, now because you had the Doc James Harden back and forth, right? Oh, James Harden didn't believe that he was given the right role in the offense. Doc Rivers, like that whole thing.
This is why you can't bring him back. That just answers it. If he didn't feel like he got the right role when he announced that to the public, like he did, and I didn't say it. So you ain't gonna get that here, honey. You ain't gonna get that here. The MVP of the league is standing right over there. All right. And as much as I'm taking shots at Joel, at least Joel ain't out partying. Joel's a homebody. That's almost like the biggest respect you could say for a player. Like some people took that the wrong way. I've heard people in the dial attack that. Like, what are you attacking? Eskin, what are you attacking, Howard? Like, I'm a cross 94-1 today, I guess. But like, what are you attacking? Because the guy's a homebody? I would rather the homebody than the lemon pepper wings with a little titty on the side. Shit.
There was a time back in the day where Chick-fil-A was a big deal. Now he doesn't even take the ride out.
I don't know why. I didn't know that. I don't know why people were crushing him for spending time with his family. That's a weird.
I heard it in numerous places.
It's a weird hill to die on, man. That's a weird.
Because you got two guys on.
That's a bizarre take.
Because you have two guys on the dial at the same place that are anti-Joel Embiid. Howard Eskin, Joe Giglio. Anti-Embiid. He can't do anything right to those two guys, right? Joe's great. I love Joe, right? But I'll tell him when he's wrong too. And I would hope he would do the same to me, right? Eskin, I'm not anti-Eskin. I think when you're drive time for as long as he is, I've always put respect on your name, right? But like he's anti-Embiid, we know it. Like it's okay. It's okay to see through it. I'm gonna see through it, right? Like I think the camera might be anti-Philly. I'm gonna pull the blinds back on this one, right? So and it's okay. But like don't attack a guy because he goes home with his family. Let's not do that.
There's plenty of things to attack him, especially after the Celtics series. The whole family staying at home thing is not one of them.
Yeah, Marsh, he didn't say he didn't love him. He didn't say he didn't love him. He said he needs to love him more, which I don't know what that means.
I think Doc in that interview, I think Doc likes hearing himself talk a little bit, right? I think he got excited that like somebody in Bill Simmons actually like still cared what Doc Rivers.
Oh, he was back on this week talking about the Denver championship. He's like a regular on there now.
Yeah, Doc Rivers likes himself some Doc Rivers, right? I'm not saying that there was no validity to it.
We saw it every presser. So I mean, I know Doc likes himself some Doc.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's fine. I take things for, I'm not gonna say gospel, but I'm gonna believe there's a lot of truth to what was said on different different players here.
Oh, the Harden thing, I 100% think because we saw that, when things were opening up, in the summer last year, right between those two, where are they button heads, that whole thing.
I do buy into his statement that there is still a lingering cloud of the process hanging over in this organization.
Brandon, is that swim shorts or not? You know what I mean? Is that how you want that hug?
Will there be candles involved in these showers?
Chrome, I think it's called complacency, to be honest. I think it's
maybe. I do think there's a mentality that's kind of lingering over it. And I'm hoping Nick Nurse is going to be that different guy. You're bringing in a recent title a title coach at this point.
See, I think this is horseshit, Marquise. I do think that part's the horseshit.
We're taking advantage of Doc at times.
Maybe Harden for sure. I don't believe Joel does that stuff. I believe Joel wants to play. I've always felt that way about Joel. So I can't see the Joel not wanting to play shit, Doc. I don't.
Now,
especially through injuries, etc. I don't see that.
Do you guys on the Harden kind of element with Nick Nurse now? If he comes back, Harden, that makes me think that there's like a handshake agreement with the organization and Nick Nurse that he's going to have that kind of factor in the offense that he wanted, that he didn't have with Doc Rivers.
He might not last a week with Nick Nurse. Because if you ain't going to play defense.
Nick Nurse's offense is all about ball movement and he's straight defense. Straight defense.
You better.
James don't pass the ball or he plays defense.
Listen, I don't think there's anything to do with a handshake agreement because I think at this point, when you're coming, I think this whole Harden thing was a smokescreen from day one.
About money.
I think that we're at the point now where there's a lot more fire going around about other options, very viable options, when you're hearing the Fred VanVleets and the Damian Lillard names getting thrown around as very possible names for the Sixers if they're available. I think James is like, shit, I might have overplayed my hand at this point I never believed the Houston thing to begin with. I always thought it was a leverage for more money. But at the end of the day, it makes no sense whatsoever for that team to pay him that kind of money. A max deal for 5 years.
I just don't.
No, it makes no sense.
Chrome, unless
what's the point of all that tanking then? You know what I mean? Get all those young players.
True. Yeah.
You give a guy at 33 years old a 5-year deal.
It was always a leverage move, and that's where we're at now. I don't think he ever intended to leave Philadelphia.
Chrome, my only thing with the Fred VanVleet is that if Harden walks, say he goes to Houston or whatever, if he just does, I don't really care.
I'm just throwing out the names that have been mentioned frequently.
No, I hear you, and I think that Fred VanVleet is kind of like their supposed backup plan, right?
I think he's the next option. Yeah, most likely anyway.
Mostly because it's kind of him, and then Chris Paul, which I don't think I'd watch the season if Chris Paul is.
I don't think there's any chance that Chris Paul plays for a team that's not in Los Angeles.
Well, that's good for my sanity, so I appreciate you saying that to me.
Yeah, I'm not like anti-Chris though.
I'm not.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't hate Chris Paul, but like not
if he could be a little bit.
I probably would take Chris over James.
All day.
That's not saying a lot. I'm not crowning Chris because he'll get hurt. He'll get hurt in the playoffs too.
Oh, he's definitely hurt, and he's definitely losing.
Yep,
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean
We're hurt, and he's definitely losing. Chris Paul's not a hate the face guy.
These are little upticks. You know what I mean? Like little moves the needle. The needle went like this.
Are you saying you'd rather want Chris Paul over like if they're both getting 1-year contracts? Are you saying you'd rather get Chris Paul than Harden?
Probably.
Well, I already saw Harden for 2 years.
Probably.
So I want to see what Chris Paul has.
I want to see what a real point guard does. I mean, listen, if James Harden leads the league in assists, Chris Paul might double that with Joel Embiid. I'm just gonna be honest. Honestly, way better passer than James Harden. And James Harden's a very good distributor who he wants to be. Okay, he's great with the pocket pass, etc. Chris Paul's a better passer than James Harden. That's his visual for fucking 12 years or a decade. Right? We've seen that for a decade, and that's not a shot at James. That's just the facts.
I'm saying this is somebody who will not be okay if they get Chris Paul. That being said, I'd rather have Chris Paul for 1 year than James Harden for more than 1 year.
Yes.
Like that's the line, right? So like because at least James Harden for 1 year, like I could talk myself into things by getting weird by October. And like, he'll have a 27 and 11 game once every like 3 weeks. That's something, right? Like I could talk myself into that. If it's like Harden for like 2 years guarantee, which I think he's going to get, I don't know. I think all things are on the table at that point.
I think that it's not an accident though that all these names are really being thrown out there now. All of a sudden, it's like, James Harden's reconsidering his position with the Sixers. He had no intention to leave here to begin with.
He's reconsidering because Houston wasn't desperate enough to give him the max contract.
Yep.
I think they bring him back.
The power move didn't work.
I think they bring him back just because whatever, but I really hope that Nick Nurse wants to go in a different direction. Like I want to believe that they hired Nick Nurse, and now Nick Nurse, they're giving him the power per se to say of the players I want. Like Bill Parcells always said, if I'm gonna coach the team, I'm gonna shop for the groceries then. You know what I mean? It's that essentially. So I feel the same way here. Like if you're bringing him in and he wants to come here, not only is he coming here because he has the MVP of the league to coach, right? But he's coming here because he has some control over personnel on his roster. That's the roster he has to coach. So you have to make those players fit your style. Now, I've always said great coaches, the greats, will coach to their player style, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in that too. So if they do run this back, air quote, per se, then you got to hope he's such a great coach that he's able to adapt to his players' strengths and styles. That's what the best of all time do. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Well, Nick,
you kind of heard it too in the presser. Like he wasn't overly glowing about having to coach James Harden potentially. I mean, he kind of, you know what I mean? He kind of hinted around the bush, like, "Oh yeah, we'd love to have him back." Well, obviously, what's a coach supposed to say? But he wasn't like obviously out there glowing about wanting him back.
Well, Eskin tried taking over the press conference by the middle of his answer too. That's the other part of it. No, the thing with Nick Nurse kind of matching with his players though, Tom, the big thing, and this goes to the big fella. Nick Nurse has a knack for being like the highest usage rate type coach with his stars. So like we're gonna get a lot of big run time from Joel Embiid, which like I'm not saying it's a bad thing, right? But like I know the last couple of years, at least the organization.
Well, I think he's different than the players that Toronto had and has. I mean, they were talking about a lot of young players per se that ran a lot of minutes. I mean, the only veteran really he did that with was what, Kawhi?
Yeah, and I'm interested. I'm going to see what Kawhi's minutes were that year.
How many years is Nick Nurse signed for?
I think he got a 4-year deal.
Okay.
4.
Here's the thing, too, right? At this point, you have a brand new head coach. He was the top coach on the market, consensus overall top coach available. You're paying 2 more years to Doc Rivers. I'm telling you right now, if this don't work, they ain't firing this coach anytime soon. So at the end of the day, if Daryl Morey is going to live and die by the sword of James Harden, this is the point where job is done before the coach is gone.
Yeah. Crumb, I couldn't agree with you more. Like if he's gonna ride that coattail, right? He's gonna ride that shit right into a retirement home. Because that's where that's going. That's where that coattail's going to hang.
Absolutely. I know we made this.
Wait, a couple strippers too. What a couple strippers is that?
I think they're going to keep the carousel of coaches to try to make this work because they're kind of forced to. That carousel's done. This is the guy. It's either this guy or there's a whole new direction happening. They are not going to be paying another coach multiple years to get rid of him to try to appease the players and the president of basketball operations. So it better work at this point because you're out.
They've exhausted. You're absolutely right, both of you, because they've exhausted every avenue. They started with Brett Brown. Oh, he's a developmental coach. He can help the young guys. They moved to a. Then they
I was okay with that, by the way, because I think we capped out where Brett Brown was going to go. Yeah, we saw the non-playoff. Yeah, there was no playoff.
The same shit.
We were in the same spot we were with Brett. I mean,
you're not. I mean,
we may have been in a better spot with Brett. In a crazy ass backwards way, we were probably in a better spot with Brett.
The problem with Brett was he was too let's say his best friend was Simmons, right? Like we always talk about how
we heard, right? Well, we heard.
You know what, to that point,
to that point, Rye, like at that time, everybody's friend was Simmons.
Right, he was still good to us.
Like, you know what I mean? To be fair, like we still kept hoping that, that something would rise up from his midsection, right? And it never happened.
Tom, can I be honest with you? Last week when I was in the airport, I went back, we had time to kill, and I was watching that. I think it was like the 2019-2020 Sixers year, and it was just Simmons. It was Embiid. They were just freaking playing basketball, and part of me, like a big part of me, missed that team. I'm like, you know what? There was like an innocence to that team, right? Because we still thought Simmons was going to like be a basketball player. Embiid was like getting better every year, and like we're still like Embiid won the MVP, so like that's fine, right? We still had picks. We had flexibility. Tobias, we're like, oh, maybe things will work out. This won't completely suck in a couple of years. And like there was like a freedom. There was like an innocence and freedom with that team because we didn't know what we didn't know.
The reason for that was because at that point where we were, there was still room to leverage, right? They weren't backed into a corner. Now we're at the point years later, back in the corner. To Tom's point, you aren't wrong because, hey, listen, we're 5 or 6 bounces off of a rim with Kawhi Leonard from getting to the conference finals with Brett Brown as your head coach. And on to what Ryan's talking about here, those early teams, far less talented, got just as far, and you got as much effort. Now, did the coach make the proper adjustments? No. And I think that's where we maxed out with Brett Brown. The adjustments just weren't there. No. But in terms of getting max effort out of your guys against far superior teams at the same point that these teams are losing at, you're not wrong. There's an argument to be had there that Brett, at this point, has done the best job.
Like, I went back to a moment. It was game 4 against the Raptors where we're blowing them out at home and Embiid had that windmill dunk and he starts doing the airplane. After this show, go back as a Sixers fan, just an NBA fan, and watch that moment. I don't think there's been a happier moment. I feel like that's where we peaked.
Not even when Ben Simmons hit the 3 in the postseason. I mean, the preseason.
No, against the Shanghai Sharks. No,
jeez.
That's a close second. But to think that 2019 Game 4 second round, I think this organization peaked. We didn't have to worry about 30-something-year-old Harden, 1 out of 5. What was the Mighty Ducks player again?
Fulton Reed.
Fulton Reed. We didn't have to do a Fulton Reed. Right?
You know what, though, Ryan? I agree with you, but at the same time, right, if we're looking at that and saying, man, those were the good times, to me, then we're reminiscing and accepting of mediocrity because we still weren't at that point. I would rather be at this point where there is a definitive expectation to where we are at a point where we should be one of the big dogs. I don't like being in that mediocre or on the cusp point. I want to be there. And I want to expect my team to make the right moves or to make moves or make an effort to get to that point. I would rather be a team that's constantly in the conversation every year on a local and national scale, as opposed to, we're on our way there. And they were fun to watch. But you know what? We knew the ride was going to end at some point. You're not wrong. They were fun to watch. There was a lot of effort there.
I'm not trying to pull Dallas Cowboys.
Never going to win.
Wow, what the Toronto team? The Toronto Sixers team, 2019? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm just talking in general of them earlier years you're talking about. Yeah, you're right that one. I'm talking in general because that whole early Brett Brown effort when they started making the playoffs, you saw that throughout. Even go back to 2018 when you had Dario Saric and Bellinelli
that's where Ben Simmons peaked. That's the best Ben Simmons.
But those teams. You go back and watch some of those clips of those games, and you can find some of those games on YouTube. They were fun games to watch. They were fun teams because you felt like you were building towards something. And yeah, we ended up at the same point, second round. You know what I mean? So
at least that 2019 team, at least we got to a bounce. At least we made it to a Kawhi bounce.
Yeah.
Sadly. I got to bounce from here.
Ralphie, all good.
I'll talk to you guys next week.
You better not end up with Dorian Finney-Smith. I swear to God, I'll come back.
See you guys.
That Lakers logo. See you, buddy.
Chrome, I was telling him earlier, all these other teams, right? This is another thing where I feel lost as a Sixers fan, right? And things can get better, right? I could talk myself into that. Next week, I'd be like, oh, things don't completely suck. But I'm seeing all these other trade packages out there. There's a Lakers one, just a pile of slop, Mo Bamba, Malik Beasley, a random pick, and they're getting Dorian Finney-Smith and 2 other players from the Nets. I'm like, we don't even have that. We can't even be in that conversation where I'm clamoring for Dorian Finney-Smith. To what end? To what friggin' end?
Again, it goes back to, and as much as we've praised Tobias, that contract has handcuffed this organization so badly. You could say even about Harden and bringing Harden on, but at the end of the day, I mean, I can't sit here and knock the Harden move because you were getting nothing out of Ben Simmons at that point. Guy still isn't stepping on the court. Yeah. So, at least you got something and had a chance to make somewhat of a run.
Could have been.
But man, I just that Tobias deal was such a backbreaker to where, okay, even when you get a Harden and you have a Joel, you have no flexibility to be able to bring in the supplemental pieces. And that's where it's killing you. You can't properly bring in any other role players or supplemental pieces. And again, I like Tobias, but he is massively over. He's probably making $15 million more a year than he should be making in his.
Well, he's taking
Fred VanVleet made $22 million last year.
Yep.
Well, that's why you can't. That's why you can't. He's going to be making $39 million plus this year.
And that's what I was going to say to you earlier, Crum. Unless you traded Tobias, you probably can't get Fred VanVleet because he's going to. All accounts is he's going to want more than Kuzma.
Well, the only way you're getting Fred is if James Harden walks. That's the only way that's going to happen.
But even then, I would have to see how much money that really opens because then you have the bird rights thing, right? It's it's not going to open a pocket. I think all it does, it opens the mid-level exception, which I think is $10 million, right? It's a weird thing. I I think in
Yeah,
order
I guess
to
we'd have to look at it.
unless Fred VanVleet comes here for like oh, Nick Nurse is here, I'm going to take a little less, maybe a little shorter, guaranteed, all that thing. That way I can make more later. I'm pretty sure you would have to dump Tobias' contract. Like that's the thing. We're so stuck. And like the other thing I was going to mention to you guys, it's it comes out today that the Sixers are planning to bring back Paul Reed, McDaniels, and Niang, and Shake Milton's probably going to walk. Like, what's your initial thoughts on those players? Because, like, to me, I think the Niang thing, unless you're bringing them back to be like in the Korkmaz role, which is like, hey, we need 2 threes real quick. Other than that, you're gonna see some pine. Like that does nothing for me.
Yeah, but I think what happens is people fall in love or fall into hate, if you want to say, with guys like Niang, right? Because you're right. If he's not shooting, he's not making the shots, then he's useless. But he saw a lot of time for this team this year, right? You know what I mean? And people used to kill Korkmaz because up until this year, it was the same thing. He saw a lot of time, right? So, but those guys have to fill out your bench, right? I'm not saying those specific guys, but you need those types of guys. That's why they're bench roles and not starters, right? I mean, I would hope a guy like KJ McDaniel or McDaniels. Is it KJ? I don't even know his first name.
It's Jalen.
Jalen. KJ. Didn't we draft KJ McDaniels?
And then we did, but we wasn't like during the process or something.
Yeah, we don't give him a 1-year deal as a second round pick. Anyway, I would think that a guy like that should be back just because you traded Matisse for him. I'm not saying the guy's a second coming of anything, but he showed flashes throughout the year before he got overwhelmed in the playoffs of being somewhat of a potentially productive bench wing. So I like that. Those 3 guys, to me, I think what else is out there? You know what I mean? Like, is there a better option than Niang out there? I don't know. Paul Reed, I want to continue to see that, just to see what the development comes. And then, like I said, the McDaniels piece is more or less just because, hey, you traded something for him. Let's see a little bit more sample size before we decide that he goes to Boston and lights it up for 20 a night.
Well, I thought, in fairness with him too, Greg, I thought in the playoffs he showed a little bit of promise there in the spots he was given.
Early on,
we went back. Yeah. Yet we went back to Daniel House, who, hey, thanks for picking up your option, asshole. 11.4 million, Ryan, to your point, 11.4 roughly is about what would open up, plus the $5.9 million mid-level exception if James Harden walks. And thank you, Eddie, for that compliment, brother. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Eddie.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
What player we could use, type player we can use that money on, Chrome, because what would that? You combine that's like $16 million. You can use that money for Bruce Brown. Which I like Bruce Brown. I think
I do. I don't want that to be my big. Yeah.
Like if we weren't stuck, I actually would like Bruce Brown to be our 3, right? Like I actually would love that. But that would be your pivot. Like, okay, you don't bring in James Harden. So you can't really use that unless Van Vliet takes a $6 million pay cut. Right.
Yeah.
I don't think the NBA will allow it.
No.
You know what I mean?
They already took our picks away for collusion. They don't have any more picks.
Yeah.
No, it's just I think to both of your points with McDaniels, I liked what I saw in spots, but I think and I don't know if this is to blame with Doc Rivers or just because the NBA trade deadline is like in a really bad spot where you get a guy, but then you have like 19 to 21 games to like get him ready. I always thought the trade deadline was in a horribly placed spot because it's at the end of the season. Push it 10 games further to the middle. That way you can actually like see if things happen in the regular season, but I'll get off that hill. Like, he looked like a guy who was lost, that didn't know where he was supposed to be, that they just told him, hey, you're going to get, like, if you get any playing time, you're going to get anywhere from, like, 3 to 7 minutes a night, unless somebody's hurt. Go out and just try and make plays.
Yeah. But, I mean, you're, the 8th, 9th man on the bench? What else are you expecting, right?
True.
But, yeah, I mean, you're right. Early on, I think he was when I saw him looking most lost, but then once he kind of grasped the offense or grasped his being on a new team, right? That was probably his first time being traded and stuff like that. So once he kind of, being on a real team.
Coming from Charlotte.
I think once he grasped and got his legs back under him, I thought, to your point, Chrome, I thought he did play really well early in the playoffs. But obviously, as the pressure got mounted and the games got, tougher and tighter, he obviously couldn't stay on the floor.
The other
part of that is not having a defined role, though.
I don't disagree.
Yeah. I also like.
But again, 8th, 9th, 10th man off the bench.
Yeah,
that's literally your role anyway.
It's tough, right? But yeah, Daniel House played an awful lot, though.
He's a veteran, though.
Yeah.
He's a veteran.
He played great for about a good 15-minute stretch, and then played
Daniel
3
House
games
game,
after that.
Dude, everyone's gonna remember the Daniel House game.
Game 5, yes, sir. I think a guy like
it's like the Bellinelli game back in the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, man, there was like 2 Bellinelli games.
Yeah.
Where were you when Bellinelli went off and hit the overtime shot?
Facing this way when the rim was this way. And he wasn't hitting rim, that guy. I wonder what he's doing. I wonder if can we offer him like $3 million?
Yeah, he's in a Turkish league somewhere, stroking.
He's overseas now, I think.
He did make that shot like this too.
Oh, it was perfect.
Marco Bellinelli is in Italy now. His native Italia for Virtus Bologna.
So he's playing with Mirotic. He's playing with that Mirotic guy who's on the Bucks that we tried trading for. I think McDaniels would do well with Nick Nurse because Nick Nurse on the Raptors, they had a lot of guys like him.
Yeah, I think he'll do well. I think he'll do better. Because it's some more familiarity with an offense once he gets a whole, per se, off-season not mini camps, but preseason basketball, etc. Just some runs and feel, and you're around guys a little bit more. You get some comfortability. I think the hardest part about the trade deadline is going somewhere, and I talked about this earlier on how, it's a small room when you talk about NBA locker rooms, right? Right. So now you have to go try to fit in somewhere. It's tough, right? It's tough for any human being. Like, think about it, just us, right? We get traded somewhere, mid-season, and now you're around 14 new guys, right? So it's hard to build that. And I think that takes a minute. So I think that he'll be better. I don't think he's anything special, but I think he'll be better and a good bench piece to have, for sure.
Chrome, I guess this is for you. Brandon Stavish.
Yeah, it was on
Spotrac?
It was on Liberty Ballers and CBS Sports. That was a projected number if they were to let. So the number might go down a little bit because House picked up his option. But if Harrell was to opt out,
which he did,
and obviously if Harden opts out and walks, that's the projected right around 11 million or somewhere between 10.5 and 11.5 million dollars is what they have on there. Now, mind you, there's other players who we still have to re-sign to, who that would affect that number as well. There's George Niang. We talked about all these other guys who could be up that have to be brought back in, but that's the number that I saw on 2 or 3 different sites, somewhere in that vicinity.
Tom, I'll start with you on this because I haven't asked you this at all. What's your thoughts on Wembanyama?
I think he stinks.
I knew you were going to say that.
I think he stinks.
Who stinks?
Wembanyama.
Not great to throw in the baseball, that's for sure.
I drove Brandon Miller number 1.
Absolutely. And I'm not talking, forget character.
And people tell me I can't watch basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I watch basketball all day. I mean, Brandon Miller and Scoot
Henderson.
Scoot Henderson might be better too. So, I mean, both to me are better options. Like, I think Wembanyama stinks.
I've eaten French fries thicker than Wembanyama.
Yeah,
well, that's what I worry about is the skill set is there, but just looking at him alone, the durability of a guy built like that in the NBA today, I don't know how that's going to hold up at all.
Yeah, how's Chet Holmgren doing?
Forget the body for a second. Nothing.
Throws a baseball real well, though.
Nothing to me like he's gigantic and he can do a lot of things, but that now you got to do it against the best in the world. And you've been doing like the only times he's taken like big guys on there Dude, I've watched a lot of videos of big guys eating him up. And not even guys, like we're talking about big guys in places that aren't known for basketball per se, right? Eating him alive. That's a little concerning.
You saw that Kenny Lofton video, didn't you?
I saw Kenny Lofton. There was another guy. In the league he played with that I saw taking him to the woodshed. So that's a little bit like defense plays too. Like, yeah, you can block shots. You're long. You're athletic, right? But I even feel like he's like a weird athletic. You know what I mean? Like, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, listen, maybe he is the guy, right? He's going to the right place. But I don't. I personally don't take him. Like, if he fell to me at 3, I take him. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if he fell to 2, I say, whoa, right? I go, whoa. Do I take him? Do I take a shot? Like, so I don't know about him. He's weird to me. And I know I said stinks. I don't think he's that good. I don't think he's that good. I got to see that play, right? The other guys played against better competition in college, right? Or the Ignite League, whatever the hell Scoot was playing in.
Oh yeah,
G League,
G League,
yeah,
G League Ignite, right? So I mean, it's like a G League on steroids. But
I think
either way, he's whatever.
I think he's just watching the tape because obviously we don't have like the full games except for like those handful that like they showcased the last few weeks. The things he does on the court, it kind of breaks people's brains because it's like it's like the eyes almost look like they're deceiving us. It's like, wait, that's not real. But to all of our points, he's going to get hurt, and the biggest question is how well is he going to recover from that? Right? Like, we're not wishing injury; it's just what happens. Players like that, like Greg, you brought up Chet. Like Chet got the Jones fracture before he even started an NBA basketball game. Right? Like it happened like in workouts or like I don't even think it happened in workouts. I think it was like the second game of summer league.
Yeah, it was during summer league. And if you want to go a couple years before that with guys with unicorn-like abilities and strange body frames, I mean, take a look at Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah, I don't even want to go down the road of him getting hurt, of him just not being thick enough to do some of the things he's doing, driving to the basket and defending. That's where I think the difference is. Like, I don't even know if he gets hurt. He may get hurt. I don't got that crystal ball, nor do I have if he's going to be sensational or not. But that I just look at how he's going up against like guys that are like way smaller than him. Like, so are you going to be able to take it amongst the trees at the NBA level? Because it's another level of athleticism that I don't know if he's faced. And if he has, I could be wrong, right? Like, did he play a team has he got a chance to play against a Team USA, like 8 and under, and really take them to school? I need to know that.
Well, he's going to be able to before the NBA season because they've got the World Cup. So he's playing with Team France with Gobert and Fournier. And I know they've got like one of their first games against like Team Canada, which is SGA, Wiggins. So like there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him to play like against real NBA guys before that.
Yeah.
But then I also like, and I'm not comparing because I know like the one guy I'm going to name played in Spain. This guy played in France. But like Luka, like he was another one, obviously for like he didn't have the size or strength or build that Wembanyama had.
It wasn't athletic. It wasn't is he talented with him? It was, does he have enough athleticism to play in this league?
Yeah.
Lucas came the question mark, and for me, I know I said it. Like, I questioned it as his athleticism to be able to hang in. I'm always going to, like, when you're a foreign player, I'm always going to question a little bit. Do you have the athleticism to keep up? And if you don't, are you crafty enough? And we're watching two guys in Joker and Luka that obviously are crafty enough to get it done. Okay? Even without the athleticism that's, you could say, that's needed. Wembanyama doesn't have the creativity in his game that those two guys have. It's even though him and Joker are big guys, they're two completely different styles of big guy, right? And Luka, same way. Does he have any of the craftiness that those guys have to make up for maybe some of the athleticism that I'm not saying he doesn't have, just the league may have more of?
So Wembanyama and Scoot faced off against each other.
Yes.
But how big Scoot?
No, I'm just talking about their teams.
No, because this guy say he scored 40 on Scoot's team. And
Scoot is 6'2".
But I need to know, who's on that team?
Well,
From
I'm
Ignite?
guessing that was the G League team.
It was the Ignite, yeah.
And who's on that team? Who's their big guy?
Let's find out.
And how much
All
defense
right.
was played in that game? Like, I'll just when things lock down in this league, right? As the season gets deeper, right, and teams clamp down more, is your game able to translate? I don't know.
I just don't know. I don't know what
obviously-
position they're going to play him. To be honest, I wouldn't play him center. I'd play him 4.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
And
obviously,
obviously,
early in his career.
He's projected, or he's going to go number 1. So obviously, he's going to have some 40-point games. In his upward, because then why would he be not going? Why would he be going number 1? Right?
Exactly, Greg. I'm not saying like he's not good. Like I said he stinks just because I like the other guys more. But he's still super talented, and like if he can shoot it like he can shoot it and do some of the things he can do. I mean, it's definitely an intriguing pick, right? It's definitely a pick that intrigues you. I won't question that, right? I really don't question Pop either.
Oh.
Like, would you question Pop? No, Doc, I wouldn't. You know what I mean? So all that being said, I just like Brandon Miller is lengthy too. Is lengthy too. And Brandon Miller's game, I like a little bit more. Character, I don't, character questions are a different conversation that teams need to do their homework on, right? Not me. Wembanyama, I don't know. Nobody knows his character. Did anybody go to his birthday? You know what I mean? Did his teammates go to his birthday? I don't have those answers. Those things do matter, though, when we talk about the NBA and you being able to be a star. Because I'll tell you right now, if LeBron throws a birthday, there ain't a Lakers player not showing up. And he's past his prime, right? He's past that, and everybody's showing up to it because they know better.
I will say, if you get a second before the season, right? Like you don't have to watch before tomorrow. Watch his comments when he was interviewed by JJ Redick. I just saw like the little clip they put out. It looks like the guy has the mindset for it.
Okay, but this to play devil's advocate with it.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody going to have the wrong answer right now in an interview.
No, but
you're prepped. You're prepped for that.
True. But I think of all because we know this time of year it's all fake, right? Like it's posturing. I think if there's going to be someone, at least in recent terms, that doesn't need to do the posturing and can afford to fuel himself a little bit because he's the guaranteed 1 and because he's a freak of nature, it would probably be him, right? Like we don't know the guy, right? Like the guy might be a great actor in front of the cameras and he might be a Ben Simmons behind the camera. Who the hell knows?
Well, again, Ben said all the right things. Guys say all the right things.
Well,
it's not
talk.
It's not about, but it's not about saying like when he did though. He would say the right things.
Sure.
You know what I mean? He would. So in defense of that, they all usually do. Now the question is, your actions will always speak louder than your words, right? And that's just fair, right? So we'll see. I mean, I'm not taking a shot at his character. I don't know his character. Brandon Miller, I don't know his character, and Scoot Henderson, I don't know his character. So that's up to them to figure out as execs. But I would probably go Miller 1, Scoot 2, Wembanyama 3. That's how I would rank it out. And that's not taking it saying Wembanyama ain't going to be a ball player. That's just saying I think Brandon Miller, with his size, his athleticism, he can do a lot of the same crazy shit in a way. But he's going against because remember the SEC was very good this year in college basketball. In my opinion, like I thought the SEC was tough. Not every year is it tough. SEC was very tough this year in college basketball, and he ain't no joke. And he's young. It's not like he's a senior. It's not like we're talking about he's that much older. I mean,
he was the best player on the best team all year.
Something to be said about that. And I think when you pass up on that, you're taking a shot, right? And that's okay. Like you got to sometimes take your shot to make it. So I get it. I'll make this clear as day because I ain't going to have this come back on me, right? Like, I got no problem with a team reaching at it and saying, man, this guy is what we think he is. We got generational, right? I got no problem with that. But you can make the same argument for Brandon Miller. You can make the same argument as, like, that kind of ability, right? And being able to develop that. Like, Brandon Miller going to San Antonio becomes I don't want to say generational, but becomes a 10-year all-star. You can write that down, which makes him a Hall of Famer.
I think people basketball fans and honestly some reporters, I don't know why they would even do it, but I think they get in their own way with Brandon Miller because they say, oh, he's overvalued going to the Hornets because that's like the whole thing. I think they just watched the tournament when he was hurt, right? Like, oh, he didn't have a good tournament. It's like, no, don't just there's context to things, right? Like Greg, like you said, he was the best player on the best team all year. There's a reason why he's a top 3 guy. It has nothing to do with the tournament. He got hurt.
Well, why is it? And then you go to yourself, okay, well, why would Wembanyama go 1? Because it's a possibility of generational that you can't pass up on in a way, right? So it's like that's where these guys get caught in the middle, right? But you got to look at it the same way. Does Brandon Miller have generational to him? He's got the length, he's got the size, he's got the ability to do things from the perimeter, he's got the ability to take it to the bucket. He's got, you know what I'm saying? He's got all the same things if you develop it the right way and you're in the right spot. If I'm MJ, this ain't the time to sell the Hornets. Like, if I'm MJ, that's why I know these two are going to be studs in a way. Or
MJ's get out.
And then they got out. So whoever goes to the Hornets is going to work. And it's probably going to be Brandon Miller. Right? Wembanyama is going to go 1. We know that, right? I mean, and again, I get why he is. I just look at, like, I keep things easy, right? And that doesn't always work, right? The way I look at it and the way Greg illustrated it doesn't always work out for you. But I'm going to go with the guy I just watched play against the best competition and be damn good. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to go that guy because he has upside too. He's not 24.
I think the other thing on the side of like the mystique with Wembanyama, aside from just watching him on a game tape, is you compare him to somebody who went, I believe he went 2. I don't think he dropped 3 last year, in Chet Holmgren in the draft. And you look at him and it's like, okay, before they both get on NBA court, you look at him and it's like, okay, in comparison to Chet, he moves better than Chet, he shoots better than Chet, he defends better than Chet. So it's like, okay, here's 2 guys that had kind of the same criticisms where body type doesn't work, too skinny.
Well, can I add a third?
You can, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, we're going back a minute, right? But KD had the same question marks.
Yeah.
And Wembanyama, how they look at him is KD on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they're evaluating this process. Now, I said stinks, but in reality, I just don't think I wouldn't take him 1. That's all I mean by that. Like, I don't think him 1. He could be sensational and he could be a bust with any of these guys, right? It's a shot.
He's like you touched on it. I think we all agree. If he's going to work somewhere, he's going to the organization that would help him do that. Yeah,
that's the easiest question in America. Like, you're my guy, but that's the easiest question in America. Anybody that answers Wiggins is a moron. Yeah. Is a flat out moron. Like, I don't care. We're talking about the MVP of the league. All due respect to Andrew Wiggins, he ain't the no damn MVP of the league. He's playing with the greatest shooter of all time and a sensational round organization to get his ring. Don't forget Minnesota days. Just to be clear, you run, Donnie, from Minnesota days.
The freaking GM of the former Timberwolves GM questioned if Wiggins liked basketball. Traded him.
Oh, he's talking
Wiggins
about
ended up winning the title.
No, he talking about back then. I'm talking about back then. That's a no-brainer pick. If I had one, it wasn't. It can't be winless for Wiggins at that point. It had to be the same conversation we're having right now. Who has the chance to be generational? Well, with all due respect to him not getting past second round, right? Regular season, etc. To a point, there's generational all over Joel Embiid. Who can tap in and get it out? Like, not get it out, but get out over the hump part of it, and the winning when it matters most. But being generational is not a question mark. Right? I think that's fair. As much as there's criticism on Joel, being something you've never seen before, that's what he is. There ain't nobody in the league ever at his size do what he does and win an MVP. Not one player. You find him and you can go back to Wilt. And Wilt wasn't shooting threes. So I'll shut that down too.
He also says, was everybody on board with Markelle before the draft? Tom, I think you and I were – no, I know you and I. It was Fox, and then our backup plan was Jackson.
Yeah, I was foxed up. Because remember the conversation? It was same with Maxey in a way. It was speed kills.
Well, he's got Fox and Simmons. Fox and Simmons, perfect. Yeah.
But no, I don't know, Don, back then, Don, like to your point, if I knew he was generational, he had the opportunity to be generational. And same conversation with Wembanyama.
And I think in that draft class itself, everybody was hyping Andrew Wiggins to be, he's going to be the next LeBron. And I mean, now we're not. I mean, Wiggins is a far cry from LeBron.
Well, you have to remember
Jabari Parker. At least it wasn't Jabari.
No, but you have to remember too. By the time the draft rolled around, the consensus was Embiid, if he wasn't hurt, would have probably been the number one overall pick anyway, even over. So,
but
the fact that he was hurt changed that.
Now Sam didn't have one, but what did you go? 1?
3.
No,
3.
Wiggins was 1, Parker 2. And
sorry. It's late and I don't remember. But either way,
we had a lot of picks back then. You're fine.
Yeah, either way though, like 1, he's better than those two in any question. And Wiggins is a good player. He's just
if
not
Joe was healthy,
player.
Joe would have gone over Wiggins.
But that's the reach pick, right, Cromer? That's reaching, hoping, and praying that he can stay on the court and do the things you hope he doesn't develop into what you want him to be. A lot of credit goes to Brett Brown for this because he did get developed here. There ain't a question about it. Joel wanted to be developed, and he got developed, right? The other guy didn't want to be developed. What I was going to ask you before, I'm going to get out of here. If you guys are ready to wrap it up, we can. But the one last thing I want to ask you guys, I think the guy's a pussy. You guys know this. But if Brett stayed for some reason, does he tap into Ben? Because we talked about it. Supposedly it was this, right? Is he able to get through to him? It's the biggest hypothetical of all time.
I don't think so, because I think that Ben started falling in love with the celebrity of being a basketball player. And that, to me, is a cycle that you start dating Kardashians and showing up at Wimbledon and everything else. That became priority 1. Didn't matter who was his head coach at that point.
I hear
that stuff started when Brett.
Mike Devil's advocate to that. He got better every year with Brett.
Tom,
He got better every year. Now, I'm not crowning him. I don't like him. I think he's a loser. I'm just saying.
I know. I understand what you're saying. I don't think he taps into the point where there would have been much more growth. I think Ben is who he is, and at the end of the day, he was going to have to be the guy to make that decision. And once he got that taste of Kardashian celebrity, it was over. It didn't matter who was around him. It was over.
I'll two-part you with this. 1, no, because I don't think anyone taps into him because the guy's just one of one egomaniac.
He's still putting out stupid-ass tweets about the Sixers.
Yeah, here's the problem, though. You're at a boiling point with him and Joel. I think if the whole blow up with Doc Rivers, Darryl doesn't happen,
go back. Forget him and Joel, because when him and Joel came under Doc, right? They weren't like that before that. Like let's be fair to this. They were close before that, and it was clear when Brett was here. Bro, that's the truth. When Brett was here, they were close. I'm not saying they would always stay kumbaya. Right, I'm not saying that. I'm hypothetical in it. Right, they stay kumbaya because that was the little family. Those three. Right. Let's not forget. Everybody's going for dinner.
We don't know what was going on behind closed doors, and we could say it appeared that way. But I mean, you go back to Shaq and Kobe, right? Everybody thought they were kumbaya, but there was a lot of stuff that even years later came out that before the dissension that was reported all those years, there were things going on that you didn't know about. So there could have been that kind of a dissension, but maybe Brett was able to manage it, but that was there. That was existing.
No matter what, whether they had a good relationship with the Brett teams or not, Joel would have left. I am so confident in saying that.
I agree with that too.
100%, because and I'm not even talking about what happened after Brett. I'm talking about there would have been a boiling point, even if it was just, hey, tell me I'm the guy over Joel, vice versa. Joel would 100% have left.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, again, all this is, hypotheticals, right? So, we don't know. Like again, he had his best year his last year under Brett.
I believe,
and that's not like saying anything. That's his numbers were like, whoa, that's a pretty good year. Now the next year went down. The next year is where it dipped. But last year under Brett, he was 16. He was almost 17 a game, like 8-8, over 2 steals a game. I believe his last year with Brett. So
I believe that at the end of the day, I think Joel has always shown, whether we agree with what we saw in Game 7 this year in the heart and effort, Joel has made a concerted effort year over year to continue to get better, even to this point.
Yeah, and Crum, I'll say this,
and I think that at some point Ben Simmons' act of not would have gotten real old to Joel real fast.
Keep this in mind.
And I think
I agree. His act got old to me, and I ain't even with him. 82, right? So I fully agree. This is a weird question. When you guys brought it up earlier, I heard it.
Great comment.
Like we were talking about it, and I just wondered if something maybe would have been different. That's all.
But you say all that, and Tom, as you mentioned earlier, though, he did improve every year under Brett.
He did.
I hate it. So I kind of buy into it a little bit, right? I'll buy into that statement a little bit because you did get the best out of him under Brett. I'm not saying the other stuff wouldn't have come to a head, right? I'm not saying him and Joel wouldn't have, bashed heads at some point, but I do. There's enough of an argument, just like there's obviously enough of an argument the other way, to say that Brett could have gotten the most out of him just because we did see him, or got more out of him. Just because we did see it. We saw the evolution, right? We saw each year he did get better in at least one aspect. Was it, and at that point for us, it was just like cookie crumbs trying to create that full cookie to eat that we never saw.
Yeah, because we were promised something else, right? We were promised generational in a way, and they're never going to come to that. But the point is, Brett was a great developer of talent. Mm-hmm. That's why the question is posed. That's why
the offensive game did not grow leaps and bounds, and that's my issue with. Like, I think defensively, he became a better player. He became a better distributor of the basketball. Offensively, even if I look at points per game, whatever. But if you go back and look at the not even the shots made, but the shots passed up all those years, the opportunities to be aggressive and key points in the game, that was always there, and that never developed. Even under Brett.
The thing that was the beginning of the end for this organization, and Chrome, I said it back then because Chrome was in the room when I threw my freaking hat across the room when it happened. It was, and it ties to Brett Brown. It was when Brett Brown was asked to be more than a coach, when he was that interim GM. The thing that put this organization in where we were, and we had to go down this line, was bridges for Zaire Smith.
Mm-hmm.
That was.
But we also don't know. We also don't know organizationally where they wanted him to go there either. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, Zaire Smith with the pick, but again, he's interim GM. He's part of that process. But I don't, whatever's announced, who knows if he has the final say of it.
Well, they wanted him to do that because that was the summer of LeBron, Paul George, Kawhi. And they were in talks at the time to get Kawhi Leonard, and San Antonio wanted Zaire Smith. So they were going to attach Zaire plus picks plus draft asset and like Robert Covington and Saric for Kawhi Leonard. That Zaire Smith pick was for San Antonio, and things plummeted.
Yep. No bueno there. Oh, well, leave it at this and get out of here. I really truly believe that Joel Embiid wants to win, just hasn't won yet. So, like Chrome said, he gets better every year. Let's hope he even makes another jump this year, because if he makes another jump this year, we're in a great spot.
And quick plug too, if you guys missed Mark Zumoff this week on Rob Ellis's show, they have a whole discussion about do you believe Joel Embiid, the Sixers will win a title with Joel Embiid? And I think that kind of coupling with our conversation here, guys, go back and check it out in our archives. You'll love to hear what Mark has to say about it too. So you guys should definitely go and check that out.
Yep. And tomorrow you have Vetted with Hollis Thomas and Irvin Fryer. That's tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. They will have
special guest Barrett Brooks.
Yep. They'll have Barrett Brooks on with them tomorrow. So stay tuned to that. You'll have Pro Fan Talk following them, and follows them as Birds with Feather. So tomorrow, big lineup, and Les Bowen will be on Saturday at 3 p.m. this week. So Bowen on the Birds, and he has a special guest. And That is one. Brandon Brooks.
It is Brandon Brooks. Yes.
So you got a lot of Brooks. A lot of Brookses on this week.
Lots of B Brookses.
Just wanted to.
Who happen to play for the Eagles.
Yep. So enjoy it. A lot of great Eagles content, Sixers content. We got you covered. Hit the like, subscribe. Make sure you turn your alerts on. Hit the bell. Thank you, Marquise. Thank you to everybody out there. Don, you know, everybody. We love you all. We can't thank you enough. And we were brought to you by Philly Sports Trips. Go book your getaway today. PhillySportsTrips.com is where you can find them. Eagles schedule release. You'll love it. Best hotels available. Best former players around. You can't beat it. And for all the Phillies junkies as well, got some good trips. Go check them out. PhillySportsTrips.com. For Greg Milanovic, Chrome, Frank, Ryan, I'm Tom. Ralphie was here. Thank God Noah wasn't here with his shirt off. We can't thank you enough for still sticking with us through that debacle.